there, Black Spaces fans. I'm Todd. I hope the evening is treating you well. I had a little bit of a microphone malfunction. So I decided I'm going to do this just real briefly to talk about two great episodes of Star Wars on this May the 4th. So May the 4th be with you. I want to wish all my Star Wars fans out there a happy May the 4th, which is our Star Wars Day. I got my Star Wars gear on. You know, FN 2187. My shout out to my favorite Stormtrooper Finn from the Force Awakens. But just want to take this time to talk briefly about these two great episodes, these two great series that we have just has aired in the past week. You know, the episode of the great or the series Star Wars: The Bad Batch, you know, that just finished up last week or so, and then the Tales of the Empire that aired, you know, the 6-episode arc that aired on May the 4th. So before I do all that, I want to give you sort of spoiler alerts if you haven't seen either one of these series. And I want to likewise give a shout out to this channel and ask you to like and subscribe to help Black Spaces thrive. Okay, let's get into a real brief discussion of the Bad Batch. So feel free, good folks, to post your comments, to share your thoughts with regards to this series. You know, now, what do I think? What do I like about the Star Wars Bad Batch? I think it's a really compelling story. It's a fun adventure. It's a heartwarming adventure about this ragtag team of clone soldiers from the Star Wars, of course, prequels. You know the whole story of this clone army being produced. You know, it was really under, you know, sort of Lord Sidious and the whole Sidious plan of creating this clone army. But this clone army is created in order to, you know, be in service to the old Republic. You know, Chancellor Palpatine, who is really the Dark Lord Sidious, and very much on the low. You know, he engineers his plan, and all of a sudden, when the Republic needs an army in order to fight the Separatist threat, voila, it's there as engineered on the planet Kamino. So what I always thought was missing, although, you know, I do like the prequels. I like the prequels a lot, and I've grown to like them more, the Star Wars prequels, the more, or the prequel trilogy films, more I have watched them and have grown on them, or they've grown on me. But what I've always thought was missing is sort of the humanity of the clones, that the clones were always seen as sort of this warrior caste that was literally created to fight. What are the other examples in science fiction? And science fiction sort of does this subtle, commentary upon the soldier grunt, the individual who's just cannon fodder thrown into the fight, whether or not they in fact have any agency to say whether or not they seek to fight, that they were created for the purpose of fighting, right? And so what the Bad Batch does very beautifully is portray, you know, there's the beauty of how this troop comes together, that this troop sort of breaks out of the cloning facility, or it becomes sort of, you know, this sort of errant group that the Empire has to hunt down and find, because of course the Empire is trying to decommission all clones and move to a human conscript army, the TK soldiers. And so what it does is it sort of humanizes, you know, them as soldiers. You know, it's the wonderful interplay of these characters. You know, the sweet Omega, you know, that she is always sort of demonstrating that she believes in the humanity and the goodness of others. You got, you know, Hunter, the leader. You got, you know, the human cannonball wrecker. You've got Crosshair, the sharpshooter, but Crosshair is always edgy, and at one point he betrays the troop, right? Because good soldiers follow orders; they don't break away. They like the Order 66; they follow the order. The order that where the clones are turned on the Jedi, which was really Sidious's plan to begin with to create the Empire. So they turn on the Jedi and try and kill and extinguish the Jedi. And Crosshair is very much like that. Good soldiers follow orders, but then he sees at some point as to the real burden, the real way in which what is your loyalty for, Crosshair? Ultimately, you're just cannon fodder too. You have Echo, sort of the cyborg with a big heart, and then Tech, the brilliant guy who, I was sad with Tech, dying, but he made that ultimate sacrifice in order to save the truth. So you have this really kind of fun, poignant, well-written interplay of this ragtag band who are all trying to sort of show this question that we were an army created, like or we're a caste army, like the Cylons of Battlestar Galactica, like the gorillas of Planet of the Apes, fill-in fans, all of the examples that you can have an army that is a created army or a caste of soldiers who are the grunts, like other wars where individuals are treated like cannon fodder. But we are really, individuals who are human beings, or we're sentient persons who should have freedom of choice. And so I really love that being at the center of this story. And by this last episode, I'm not thrilled about it being called The Cavalry Arrives, because the cavalry arriving has a certain meaning in American history. But maybe it's the cavalry of the empire, the forces of domination coming to subdue. But anyway, but the very last episode is nicely done, is poignantly done, and I think it has all of these sort of great elements to it. It has these great elements also, and again, let me encourage you to subscribe, or like and to subscribe, and or to post your comments. But it has all these sort of wonderful elements about the interplay of this troop. It has all these wonderful elements with regards to the fact that Omega, they're trying to find out why is she being hunted, particularly by the Empire? Why is she connected to the Project Necromancer? What is it about Omega? And Project Necromancer is the Emperor's attempt to clone himself or make a force-sensitive clone. Like Grogu in The Mandalorian, Omega is serving as that individual who's being tested or has the proper metachlorian count in order to her being sort of having the proper genetic material in order to create such a clone. And so she in some ways is leading this troop with her heart. A little child should lead them. And that's essentially what Omega is doing in this series. And so, this last episode, she leads the other children who've been captured in Mount Tantus. You have, Dr. Hemlock and his evil plan to push Project Necromancer forward. You have Governor Tarkin, who's not thrilled at all with Project Necromancer. And by the end, when Hemlock, spoiler alerts, by the way, but when Hemlock tries to, run away with Omega, all hell breaks loose because Omega and the children break out the Zillo Beast. The Zillo Beast wreaks havoc on this facility, and thus, that provides an opportunity for them to escape. But then, of course, Omega is captured by Hemlock. Crosshair, shoots Hunter, and Crosshair try to pursue, and Crosshair shoots and kills Hemlock. So you have all that going on. You have also the interplay with Nala Se and Rampart and Admiral Rampart. that Nalisay, the very last of the fans, you can tell me how it's pronounced, but the folk from the planet Camino, who had the original technology to create the clone army, but Rampart destroyed the planet Camino and effectively committed genocide against her people. And so she, being protective of Omega and Omega's genetic material, because she knows what they want to do with this technology to create this clone, or maybe she didn't know the whole story, but she knows it's not good, and create this clone of the Emperor, or maybe, sort of these Sith clones, who knows? So, the fact that she ensures that Omega's material does not get into Rampart's hand or to the hands of the Empire and blows herself up along with Rampart. You got that into play. I mean, there's just like a lot of great stuff to this final story in this final chapter. And, it really, in some regards, remind me of really sort of the great aspects of Star Wars. I've heard other commentators talk about the fact that you have this interplay in Star Wars where the animated, with Disney Plus and the Disney Corporation being in control of it all now, but that the cartoons or the animated series are actually provide greater stories than the films and live action. I believe that's true to some degree, but I do love aspects of what they're doing. I thought Ahsoka was fabulous. I won't get off on a tangent, but I do think that there's great things being done in live action, and we shouldn't give any short shrift to live action in that regard, because Balin and Elsbeth. I'll get to Elsbeth in Ahsoka. Grand Admiral Thrawn. I mean, fantastic stuff. So anyway, all right. So that's my general sense about the Bad Batch, or why I think it's a really kind of great series. So let me kind of share now to talk a little bit about the Tales of the Empire. And then fans, feel free to post your comments. So any thoughts or comments that you have, feel free to post. And again, subscribe, like, subscribe, give your comments. Let me get to the Tales of the Empire. I think that we're getting at a point in Star Wars, particularly with the Tales of the Empire, where we really, how should I say this? I really do think we're getting to a point in Star Wars where if you have only watched the films, the major motion pictures, you will be lost watching a lot of stuff on Disney Plus. I mean, you got a lot of homework to do. And, it's not a bad thing, but there are ways in which the more that's being released, the more you got to know. I mean, of course, any film epic, any, sort of saga series that is 50 years old and has been telling stories for 50 years is bound to have a lot of nooks and crannies to it. And you do got to do some homework, I guess. But, I guess I want to just give a shout out to the folks who are just like mid-level fans or non-fans to say, I thought Tales of the Empire was great, but it ain't for folk who are just novices. You got to know a lot. You got to have watched the Clone Wars or parts of it. It would have helped if you watched parts of Ahsoka. You got to have watched parts of Star Wars Rebels. I mean, you got a lot of watching to do to kind of be able to pull apart, or at least be able to follow, well, why is Elsbeth doing this? And why is Offee doing this? I mean, it's a lot. So anyway, having said that, I do think that this 2-story arc is great, or the story arc of this story arc where you have 6 episodes and 2 arcs is great. I would say that I actually like the first arc better than the second. So let me explain. The first arc, episodes 1, 2, and 3. What is it? It's fear, the path of fear, the path of anger, and I think it's the path of hate. I think that story arc, and of course the Tales of the Empire is the parallel series to the Tales of the Jedi that was released on Disney Plus. I think about back in 2022 or 21 or somewhere around there. the Tales of the Jedi was a story arc about the rise and fall. Well, really kind of the rise of one great villain, Count Dooku, who becomes a lieutenant to Darth Sidious, or Chancellor, and then Emperor Palpatine, or he gets knocked off before he becomes Emperor. But anyway, but Count Dooku, leader of the Separatist army, and then prequels, and then the rise of Ahsoka. You know, the maturation of the Jedi Ahsoka. You know, Palpatine. Excuse me. She's the Padawan of Anakin Skywalker, as you know, and then. You know, I know it's problematic to say she's a Jedi because she didn't quite become a Jedi Knight before, but Ahsoka's a Jedi. So that's that story. And so the Tales of the Empire is the parallel to that series, or to that you know, miniseries. Like I said, I like the first arc of episodes 1, 2, and 3. Why? It's the tale of Morgan Elsbeth and Grand Admiral Thrawn. Now, what I always find fascinating, and this is true of Star Wars in sort of epic films, is how complex the villain is, or the antagonist at the very least. How complex are they? Heroes are great, but what I think villains do is they inform us, well, evil is not just evil. Evil is beyond that, right? Like, you know, Killmonger in Black Panther. I've had so many friends who said they thought Killmonger was as compelling a character as was King T'Challa and the Black Panther. And I agree. Killmonger, he was a misogynist. We won't go there. But Killmonger was a fascinating character. He was a villain, quote, or he was an anti-hero, or at least a villain, but a villain with a particular set of purposes and a really complex story, right? Anakin Skywalker, which is really what the original trilogy is all about, is really Anakin's story as much as it is Luke Skywalker's story. Anakin Skywalker is a fascinating character. He turns to the dark side, not because of just the love of pure evil. He turns from being a Jedi and the you know, Padawan of Obi-Wan Kenobi. He turns to the dark side not because of just a love of incarnate evil, not because he just wants power, but because of the fear of loss. For those, you know, in the Christian faith who talk about, you know, the text that says, you know, is it 1 Timothy or so, that says, you know, the opposite of hate is not the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of hate, no, excuse me, the opposite of love is fear, right? And so fear of loss. He fears losing his wife Padme, and he wants to find a way to keep her. So he wants to. He's pulled into the dark side by Darth Sidious, and drawn to the dark side, or compelled to come to the dark side by Darth Sidious, so that Darth Sidious will give him the powers to resurrect life. Where have we heard that story before? And Frankenstein, and then, you know, and so the fear of loss is also what is true in this story with the Tales of the Empire. Grand Admiral Thrawn, and Grand Admiral Thrawn, he's a badass. I love Grand Admiral Thrawn because he's a Moriarty of Star Wars. I love me some Grand Admiral Thrawn. He's just not an evil guy. He is a brainiac. He's a military genius who actually has, particularly if you read the Timothy Zahn books, he actually has great affection and great compassion at times, even though he is a Grand Admiral of the Empire, because he believes in loyalty. He believes in a notion of esprit de corps and morale among his troops. This is even conveyed, and I think it was done brilliantly in Ahsoka, of rewarding those who show loyalty. You know, Darth Vader, you know, sort of like, you know, do what you're supposed to do or else I'll kill you. Whereas Grand Admiral Thrawn is like, you know, he's calm, he's collected, he's calculating, he's a brilliant statistician, you know, his strategist, let me not mess up word, but his superpower is not the Force or fighting. His superpower is his brain. And so the fact that Grand Admiral Thrawn is connected to the Empire, he's connected to the Empire, or is, eventually comes up to the ranks of the Empire. Long story, including the fact that Grand Admiral Thrawn, as a member of the Chiss, is discriminated against in the military academy, in the naval academy. But anyway, he joins the Empire in order to protect his beloved Chiss ascendancy in the unknown region, and to protect and to join the powerful group who will bring about the order in the universe, because he thought the rebellion is just like, these ragtag folk with these democratic ideals. That's not going to bring about order, and it's not going to bring about what we need in order, or I'm not going to be able to step in and create order to fight this unknown threat. We'll find out. The books give us some insight, but to fight this unknown threat in the unknown region. And so Thrawn is this powerful individual who joins the Empire for an ulterior motive. Same with Morgan Elsbeth. She joins the Empire and is loyal to Thrawn because of Dathomir, right? And that's why I think this Tales of the Empire, the first 3 episodes, nicely portrays this very poignant scene. And I mean, it was some badass fighting, folk. This poignant scene of the Separatist army destroying Dathomir. I mean, and that was really well done. Kudos, Dave Filoni. It was well done of the scene of the fight between Elsbeth, her mom, and other of the Night Witches or the Night Sisters of Dathomir fighting effectively against being killed, against genocide, right? And so she joins with Thrawn, or effectively with the Empire, because she too wants to seek revenge, or not. I'm not saying Thrawn wants to seek, but she too wants to bring about the resurrection, and in her case, revenge, of her beloved Dathomir. And this is the way she's going to go about doing it, by sort of having an ulterior plan in the Empire. So I think it's fascinating in that regard, that you got these two folks with some very fascinating ulterior motives that we get a fuller story about. Then also, I thought it was fascinating that you have this story of the real plan of the TIE Defender program, not necessarily being Thrawn's idea, but it being Morgan Elsbeth's idea. And I thought that was fascinating. I thought that was really well done and quite intriguing, right? And so, and Thrawn likes the idea and recruits her, and eventually that's why she becomes so dedicated to Thrawn, for all the ways in which Thrawn is this magnetic figure, but then also that he gets her. He sees, and he's not asking her for blind loyalty. He is demonstrating what he can do for her as a leader, right? And so, and of course, Thrawn's whole idea about the TIE Defender program is, listen, the Emperor and Grand Moff Tarkin, Governor Tarkin, have this grand idea. We're going to create, this Death Star, and it's going to scare the heck out of the rebellion. And, and they're going to be scared witless. And that's how we're going to keep them in line and loyal to the Empire. Well, we know from Rogue One and if in fact Thrawn's plan had been pursued by the Empire, of these smaller, and more nimble and powerful TIE fighters against the rebellion X-Wings, Luke Skywalker and the Red Squadron and other squadrons wouldn't have made it to the Death Star. They'd been blown out of into space, and the Empire would have survived. So Thrawn was right? So I think that fascinating interplay between Thrawn and Elsbeth is talked about in a very sort of pithy but good way. The second part of the story I thought was also well done. I was not as compelled by the story, and maybe that's just my fascination with one set of characters versus another. I'll face up to it, folks, that maybe one story just moves us more than another. I thought the story with Offee and with Lynn and the Grand Inquisitor and being part of the Inquisitors and being pulled into the Inquisitor cadre by the Grand Inquisitor. I thought it was a compelling story. And of course, it's the Star Wars redemption story, right? Spoiler alert. So, that we get more of Offee's story because Offee is this Jedi who is drawn to the dark side. And then she effectively then, in being drawn to the dark side, she, effectively is compelled, and has to, in fact, they don't give her no choice, right? The Grand Inquisitor, hands her and the remaining person who's the competitor, a lightsaber, puts a ring around them and say, fight, or else, whoever wins lives. So she's compelled to become part of this the Inquisitors. And the whole purpose of the Inquisitors is to hunt down the remaining Jedi as commissioned by Lord Darth Vader. So, that interplay of the fact that she comes back to the light, she said it hits her that, and she has this epiphany about, yes, I was drawn to the dark side. I was compelled to come to the dark side, somewhat like Anakin in some regard, right? Well, he actually a little more compelled even than Anakin. But, but she sees the light. She becomes this healing mother figure who then we see that poignant scene of the child being brought to her so she can ferret that child away, because that child has some of the same similarities or has similarities with Omega and with Grogu, a certain Metachlorian count that would make them attractive to Palpatine's Necromancer project. And then you have that, what I thought was a really nice interplay in the cave, the way out, the double entendre of being when Lynn chases Offee into the cave and can't get out. And the way out of the cave is also the way out of being an Inquisitor, right? Of no longer hunting these children or hunting the Jedi, trying to extinguish what light there's left in the universe, in the galaxy. Well done. Again, I just thought the first story was, the composition of the fourth story and the characters of the first story were more compelling. Although here's my last critique, and I'll stop it here, folks, because I appreciate fans you watching this on the May the 4th. Both are a bit choppy, although I'm gonna have to concede the first arc of Elsbeth and Thrawn, I think is a bit more choppy. I mean, wow, they jump around. How much do they jump around? They jump around. Wow, do they jump around a bit, or in some ways. And so, I thought both were a bit choppy. I think we're only still being teased by both stories. I do think the Offee Lynn story is actually a more complete story. They actually kind of walk into the sunset. Whereas with Thrawn and Elsbeth, you're like, there's got to be more to it than this. And if you didn't watch any of Ahsoka and you didn't watch, any of The Mandalorian, you probably will think there's got to be more to the story. And there is, and there's more to come. So I think the choppiness is what I found a little disconcerting, and so, again, fans, you can tell me if you agree, if you think it's all, put well together. But true to Star Wars, if it's going to be good Star Wars, it's got to be fun. It's got to be popcorn, good fun, adventure stuff. Even though I think at this point in Star Wars, we're getting some very poignant stories. Well, we have always gotten poignant stories. We've always got a little bit of a tearjerker. But we're getting some really poignant stories, even in in animation, and particularly some would say in animation versus other things we've seen. Okay, so good folks, that's my critique. That's my thoughts that with regards to the Bad Batch series, and particularly the finale, which is what I focused on, and the Tales of the Empire. Post your comments and your thoughts. What did I mess up? What did I misstate? I listen to things that I do with regards to my broadcast or my broadcast with my co-pilots of Taliba and Toya. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, I got that completely confused. So what did I mess up? Do you agree with my unique critique? That's what we do here at Black Spaces. We love science fiction, so we got the Acolyte coming up, Star Wars Acolyte coming up. We've got, of course, the Planet of the Apes coming up, in being released in theaters and IMAX. And we've got great sci-fi also through our streaming service. I'm a particular fan of The Silo. Love Hugh Howey's The Silo. I love Severance. We got that great sci-fi coming up. But we also, of course, we got our great fantasy coming up. And I know I haven't checked in terms of release dates, but of course we also have House of the Dragon, among other sort of great fantasy work coming out. And we'll give our either longer or shorter critique or conversation with you, the fans. So thank you so very much for taking the time. May the 4th be with you. Enjoy all of the Star Wars that's coming up in the coming year. Lord, I'm waiting for Andor. I know it's a ways off, but I love me some Andor. I think Andor is the most compelling adult series. I mean that in a good way. Wow. Anyway, take that in a clean way. But it's the most grown-up series of Star Wars, and I think it is so well done, and can't wait to see what they do next. But again, thank you for watching. Subscribe, comment, like, comment, and subscribe to help Black Spaces thrive. And as I say, because I sound like Don Cornelius from Soul Train, catch you on the backhand side, catch you on the black hand side, and in the future. All right, peace out.